Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Why We Do It, the stories behind the stories in amateur sports, and to this particular special Eejit on a Bike series. This episode is very kindly sponsored by Pedal Power in West Calder. They command one of the biggest cycling retail floor spaces in Scotland, and they can advise on all aspects of cycling, from your kid's first bike right up to pro-level road and off-road bikes, e-bikes, accessories, and clothing. They also provide coaching, group rides, bike fit services, plus a superb workshop. Always friendly and incredibly helpful. I bought my first main road bike there a few years ago and have been using them ever since for all my cycling requirements. A top-notch outfit. That's Pedal Power, located on Main Street in West Calder. David, how are you? Daithi, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Jim.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Eejit on a Bike series within the Why We Do It podcast. Delighted to be doing this with you.
Yes, likewise. I nearly think we have to explain what the hell the Eejit on a bike is.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll come to that. I'll come to that. Yes. We've got loads of things to talk about, and that can be number one. We'll put that right up at the top. What do you think of the intro? That's the first time you've seen it.
It is. It's brilliant. It's very good. And I have to add to you, I was out with Jonathan today. He's personally going to do my bike for me and have it back to me on Monday. It's the best bike I've ever had. They've done a brilliant, brilliant job with it. They've refitted it for me and everything. They give me narrower handlebars. I really enjoy cycling on the bike, so I'm really happy with them.
So now I have to explain a couple of things. Firstly, I'm glad you like the intro, because if you said you didn't, I would have had to walk around the block here, come to your house and clip you around the ear. So that was the correct answer. And secondly, You're talking about Jonathan. So thank you very much to Jonathan and Neil at Pedal Power, who are our sponsors of this series. It's fantastic and superb that they are doing this for you and us, because basically you put us under a load of pressure to raise money for you, which we'll be talking about in a minute. And I was like, well, you've recruited a load of people in the area we live in Bologna here outside Edinburgh. And there's going to be more quiz nights and kind of discos and God knows what other types of activities going on. And everyone here is going to be dragged into all those. I've got to do something different. So I'm delighted we're doing this podcast as part of our support, and that Pedal Power are sponsoring this podcast as a way of contributing to your overall effort for the Coco charity. And I'm going to throw this screen up now, because as we talk, this will be there for a fair bit of the discussion for people to see what it is that you're telling them about. So you're raising money for Coco. We'll talk about that. You're doing this crazy ride. We'll talk about that. And Pedal Power are sponsoring this series, where this is the first episode of a few. I'm going to talk to you maybe a couple of times before you go. I don't know. We haven't actually set down an exact schedule. I'm certainly going to talk to you over some short clips while you're doing it. And hopefully this will be a good way for many people to track your progress, to keep up to date with what you're doing. It'll take a little bit of the pressure off you, potentially, in terms of the updates you're going to be doing it through this podcast, potentially. Hopefully that's the plan anyway. So tell us about Eejit on a Bike. You teed that up. What is Eejit on a Bike?
Well, first of all, Eejit on a Bike as a name came from my daughter, who decided it would be very important to be on TikTok, and it had to be something that would be recognizable on TikTok. And since I constantly use the word Eejit, the very lovingly Irish and Scottish way of saying idiot, she decided that Eejit on a Bike would be a good name for me. And I think it quite fits. I'm 60 years old, and maybe it's not really the time that you should be going off doing cycling through 15 countries and 7,500 kilometers. So I am an Eejit, and it will be on a bike.
Excellent. So it's the 60 for 60. And we'll be mentioning this a few times, but there is a fundraising page, coco.org.uk/Daithi6460. Hopefully very straightforward. You just have to remember how to spell Daithi properly, something that took me a little while to do. coco.org.uk/Daithi6460. And it's 60 grand in your 60th year. That's all I'm going to say. Tell us, we're going to do the what, where, when, how, kind of a series of headings, but start with the what. What is this? What are you doing? And just give us the overall what element of this.
So this is a bike race that happens every 2 years. I think the first running of it was in 2016. And it's from the North Cape at the top of Norway to Tarifa at the south of Spain. So at the most northerly part of Europe to the most southerly part of Europe. It's 7,500 kilometers through 15 countries. Andy, the guy that organized it, says it's 80,000 meters of climbing, Thankfully on Strava it says 75,000, so I'm hoping it's slightly less difficult. So it's there's 80 people have entered this year. I think fewer than 100 have ever finished it. So generally people stop at Nice, mostly because it's bloody hot in Spain and they don't really want to do all the cycling in Spain. So my intention is hopefully to go all the way to Tarifa and get there in about 36 days.
36 days. Any days off in that, or is it just straight 36?
So currently there are no days planned off, but the likelihood is I will take a couple of half days for bike maintenance more than anything. So it's probably 37 rather than 36.
Okay. I'm having flashbacks to talking to you about the incredible, when we did, maybe my first podcast I ever did, actually, 3 or 4 years ago. You can tell me when it was. I was in Mallorca. In fact, I've got a timestamp on it. It was 2023, because I remember what I was doing that year, and I was in Mallorca on holiday with a family, and you and I talked after you did your first race. So I'm immediately having thoughts that are back to the kind of questions I was asking there then, and the questions are being added to my list as we go here. But just remind us what you did back then quickly, and how that led into this.
So that was the North Cape 4000, which actually was 4,500 from Turin in Italy to the North Cape in the top of Norway. So that was through, I think it was 15 countries. No, it wasn't. It's 10 or 11 countries. It was 25 days. Brutal heat at the start, very cold wind and rain towards the end. So we had a right mixture. It was very, very enjoyable though, except for when it was hard. It was a really enjoyable.
Which must have been most of it, except for most of it. It was lovely.
There was a chunk of it was hard, and it was frustrating and emotional and mentally tough. But seeing the places I saw was absolutely brilliant, and meeting the people that I met was absolutely brilliant. And one of the really important things, Jim, 200 people were on my WhatsApp chat. And I must have annoyed them to hell and back because of all.
I was on that chat.
Multiple iterations. But what people don't understand is when I'd be stuck in the middle of someplace, feeling sorry for myself, somebody like you would make a sarcastic, miserable comment that would actually make me go to the next town. And so having people supporting me with outrageous comments, whether they're uplifting or downright horrible, is really helpful in this challenge.
I've just remembered that as you were saying that. I remembered that yes, I did encourage you a couple of times with some language that I knew might appeal to your very unique kind of outlook on life and sense of humor. So I think in reflection, but that worked. So I'm glad. I'll have to save some of that up for when I'm talking to you on the series of podcasts. Yeah. So if that was 4 and a bit thousand, this is 7,500. I remember before you did that, there was a lot of chat, and you and I talked about the planning. You weren't sure about nutrition. You weren't sure about what to take on your bike or not. And you learned shed loads of stuff in the process of that 25 days. Let us know. Tell us about how what you learned then has kind of been carried over into this, and how your preparation has been different, perhaps, and how your plan for how you're going to do almost twice that over a bunch more days is playing out.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I haven't changed an awful lot because most of what I brought was needed. But I had a big, heavy bivy bag. That's not coming with me. Because, in fact, I never needed the bivy bag, because on those occasions where things went wrong, there were public toilets and disused houses and the like for me to sleep in, which means I didn't need the bivy bag. So that's not coming. The bar bag that I carried spares in, I've now discovered I don't need that either, because I can get everything into the seat pack at the back. So I'm only going to have between 6 and 7 kilos of weight on the bike this time, which is brilliant, on top of the bike weight of 8.5. I'll carry a bag on my back because it will be so hot in Spain in particular, and maybe other places. I'll need extra water. But in Finland, for example, where you could be talking about 150 kilometers before you reach a shop, I'll be able to stick food in the bag. So it's coming with me, which is different to the last time. I'm far less worried about what I'm carrying this time, simply because there's nothing you can't get on the way. I'm far less worried about my physical strength, even though I've done far less training this time than I did for the others. But I'm anxious, because the first 8, even though when you look at the route, the Alps are by far and away the most difficult in the climbing, but the first 8 days will be horrible because of the distances between places, because of the horseflies that I keep hearing are horrendous. That's the second time in a couple of days I've heard somebody who ended up being infected by the horrible things.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So those 8 days, I think, I'll be either very battle hardened and ready for anything, or I'll be crying my eyes out after a horrendous 8 days. So it's that looks like it'll be the most difficult for me mentally, the first 8 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like fun, and some decent horsefly insect repellent might be order of the day there, because those are nasty nippers when they get going.
Yeah.
Training wise, you just touched on training. How's your training been different? You've done less, I think, but you must have learned huge amounts from last time. So how's your training been different? And by the way, I mean, for those who don't know you well, you had surgery at the beginning of this year, so that was an unexpected start to what would have been your kind of, at that point, your training's program. So talk us through how your training's gone, and I'll talk about dates in a second.
Yeah. So the other 2 or 3 events that I did, I started training right at the beginning of the year. So I generally had 6 months of training. This year I had the op in the middle of January, so I didn't actually start training until the middle of February. So everything's been concertinaed into 3.5 months. And you cannot do I can't do 7,000 kilometers of training in 3.5 months. I just can't. So I'll end up with about 6,000, which is still a fair bit. But as people say, you don't lose all the training that you've done in the past. I've got some big distances in. I mentioned to you earlier, I did just under 200 kilometers yesterday. The only thing I haven't done.
I have to. I was going to bring that up. I just to interrupt you. Sorry that I don't want it to go past the fact that I was just going out for a short little spiel around the local area, and there you were slogging your way back in. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening.
Yes.
I just nipped out after kind of doing a bit of work, and there you were trekking your way back in and shouting at each other as we passed by. Although I think you maybe didn't realize it was me, but no. I saw you. Tell us about yesterday. That was a big ride.
I was blinded by the cleanliness of your shirt, as I told you, Jim. I've never seen such a clean.
My speed. It was blurry. I was passing you at such speed.
So yesterday was about 192 kilometers with a climb in it that's called the Menop Pass, which is in one of the top 100 bike rides in the UK.
So we're talking 115, 120 miles. I mean, that's significant.
Yeah. And it was lovely on the way out. Some nice stops, some nice scenery, but of course there was a nice little headwind on the way back, which isn't very nice when you're struggling a small bit. But I got home and I feel great today. I don't feel like I've got a bike ride in my legs at all, which means I'm fairly confident I can cycle the distances. So that's good. That was my third near enough 200 kilometer bike ride, so that's great. The only thing I haven't done yet is put all the kit on the bike, just to get used to having it on the bike again. So I'll do that next week or the week after. Cool.
So time's approaching. We're doing this. I'll just give you dates. We're doing this on the 27th, but I didn't tell you that before we did this recording. But my plan is to publish this early next week. So that'll be the 1st or 2nd of June. We'll put this out. So that's when people will get to see it for the first time. So by the time people see this, you will be about 2 weeks away from flying to Norway, to Oslo. So you only have 2 weeks then at that point to test out this little kit on the bike and anything else you're doing in the final stages. But give us a bit of a rundown of the timing, the dates, and your plan between now and getting going, which is on the evening of the 19th into the 20th of June, 3 weeks away, basically, by the time people see this.
So we only received the files for the route in the last couple of weeks, and the last of those files arrived yesterday. So a lot of what I've been doing is creating a spreadsheet around how much I think I can do each day and where the various places to stop might be on each of those days. Of course, the plan will go to hell very quickly, but so I just finished the last of the route planning actually first thing this morning around 7:30. So that's ready now, and I feel kind of good about it. There are 4 days where there'll be 4,000 meters of climbing. There are several days that'll be over 250 kilometers. So anyway, the route's done. What I've left to do now is just to finish deciding exactly what I'm bringing with me. So I haven't yet decided whether I bring an inflatable mat to sleep on, but I'm more or less there that I will. I've got all the spares, I've got all the clothes I need, everything's ready, it's in the bags, and I just need to pack it up. So the next couple of weeks is just keeping the pedals turning. Incidentally, I think I'll do between 1.5 and 1.8 million pedal strokes over the course of the 36 days. And I'm expecting to have to take on board over 200,000 calories over the course of the bike route. So one of the problems I'm having right now is trying to eat enough. So
you're a conveniently slight and small frame guy, which is handy, particularly for the uphills. But that means you've got to get food in you. You're probably use less energy than me, because I might be maybe 1.5 times your weight probably. But you've got to get that through your system and keep it topped up, and you can't do too much. You got to do it or too little. You got to get that balance right, haven't you?
Well, I've got to get about 5,500 calories in every day. So that's
incredible, absolutely incredible.
You know, you'll get 2/3 of it at lunch and in the evening, but the rest, about 2,000 calories, which is what most people will survive on a normal day.
In a whole day.
You've got to eat that in between the stops, right? So you've got to be eating every half hour constantly. And I don't know about you, when you were doing, for example, the Comrades Marathon Gym, but you get bored, and it actually is really difficult to force yourself to keep eating. So I'm trying very hard just to keep munching all the time right now. One of the things Abby's going to do with me is a TikTok video on what 6,000 calories is, and me eating it on a day when I'm not actually cycling, which will be very interesting. So that's a big part of what I'm trying to figure out over the next couple of weeks. What can I eat that I don't get bored with? It's a bit more serious than the last time, because it's nearly 3 times the climbing, right? So that will burn a lot more calories than it would when you're pretty flat all the time.
Yeah. And as you said before, you learned last time, apart from some very remote stretches, particularly in the northern areas, you can buy and you can top yourself up as you go. You don't have to carry loads of this with you. You've learned a load about that. The days of the Scotch, what was it that you were, the pork pie, the pork pie experiment, those days are well and truly gone. Lessons learned. We're not doing that anymore.
Long gone. Oh, there'll be lovely pastries and pain au chocolat and all sorts of stuff, especially when I get out of Scandinavia. They have as bad eating habits as Brits and Irish, so they do. Pizzas and sausage rolls. It seems to be the in thing in that neck of the woods.
I remember being very amused, well, not amused, almost slightly concerned for you, and then kind of curious when you messaged me before the last one and you were working all this out. And you're like, oh yeah, pork pie is the answer. And I remember thinking, really? I'm not so sure about that. And then a few days later, you were like, nope, that's definitely not the answer. But that's what it's all about. You try and you test and you work these things out.
Yeah, and that's right. And so, I mean, it's good you laugh about it. And the first day, Jim, there'll be nothing for 150 kilometers. Like in normal circumstances, you or I, if we were doing 150 kilometers, you'd have done it in 6 hours, right? But because it's the middle of the night and all the rest of it, with stops and all the rest of it, it'll be 8 hours. And maybe there'll be a shop open 150 kilometers in. But you've got to carry enough for that 8 hours through the night, which is riding at night is tough. Riding at night and having to carry all the food is very tough. So
there's so many things I want to talk about. I knew as soon as we started, a bunch of things would start coming to mind, but I want to move into the why in a minute. But last thing, I'll try to keep this the last thing, because there are lots of subjects popping up. But the sleeping kind of plans, the sleeping routines. Trying to avoid public toilets this time, if possible, please. Just for the rest of us.
Well, if they're as warm as the one I slept in, I will not avoid them. I will avoid bus stops, and I'll avoid sleeping in a field. but I'm not giving any other guarantees. I mean, the barn that I slept with in during the Pan Celtic had a mattress for me. It may be not the
Wow.
mattress that you bring home to your missus, but it
Oh,
was a mattress. Nothing.
jeez. Oh, the mind boggles, David. Jeez.
Yeah,
So yeah, we look forward to updates on that
yeah,
as you go. That'll be fun.
yeah.
And now the big question. We've had the what, the where, the when, the how, but the why. Capital letters why. Tell us about the why on this. This is everyone thought you were mad last time. This is just totally bonkers. What's the why?
So I'm sure, Jim, when you did your Comrades Marathon in under 9 hours,
Hmm.
and you were coming to the finishing line, and you were
Hmm.
elated, and particularly for the reason that you wanted to do it,
Hmm.
you probably, in the same time as your elation, were feeling, oh, that's over. What am I going to do now? And I think if you speak to anybody who's ever done these ultras, there's a huge crash at the end of it. And it's like when I got to the Tarifa, or not the Tarifa, to the North Cape, you want to just keep going, although physically, if you'd kept going, you'd have cycled straight over the cliff and into the sea, and that might not be a good idea. So part of it is there's just an unquenchable thirst to do another adventure, okay? And in the last few days of that bike ride 3 years ago, somebody who obviously hated me put something on the chat that said, here's your next adventure, which was
Jeez.
exactly this. And I used my usual colourful language and told them to go away, that I would never do anything like this again. But of course, it gnaws away at you. It gnaws away, and you knew you had 3 years before the next one came up, and it just gnawed away and it gnawed away, and all of a sudden I was doing it. So for me personally, it's the adventure. It's just how far can I push myself, and I suspect this is going to be as far as I can.
Mm.
But the other thing was, um, I I was 60 last October, and I don't know how other people deal with being 60, but it became a kind of a reflection for me about what's happened in my life. And I grew up in a place that's a very small place. Nobody would ever consider us to have been poor, but we lived off my dad's salary, who was a teacher, and they did not get paid very much then. So we weren't rich, but we were rich in education, and we were rich in opportunity, and we were rich in support. And that richness has translated into me being very well educated. Well, other people might say I'm stupid and an idiot and all the rest of it, but I got great opportunity out of it. It gave me a great life. I've ended up living in a lovely place with a lovely family, but not everybody has my opportunities. And so my reflection was, how do I actually give some other people a similar opportunity? How do I support them? Well, there's not much I can do here in the UK, because it probably costs you 60 grand to send somebody to school for a couple of days here. But as you know, there's a charity called Coco who helps people in Southeast Africa, and particularly in Kenya. And for 20 quid, they can make a huge difference to a family. And for example, giving agricultural training to a mother helps her deliver crops that she can both feed her family with and sell to the market. So I got thinking about, well, why don't I just do something, go big or go home, and try and raise 60 grand, a grand for every year of my existence, to try and give something back of what I've been given over my life. And I think that's as good a reason as any to do this event.
Well, good for you, David. I think it is probably the most ambitious thing that I've known anyone try and do personally. Yeah, I did do. You kindly referred to a very big event in my life in 2018 when I finally, fourth attempt, got to go get a target time I was going for in a 55-mile road race, running, just purely running. One day, 9 hours was the target. I'd done it in slightly longer before that. That's nothing compared to 35 days, and you probably 9 hours is probably a short day for you, I would have thought. I mean, how long are you going to be cycling each day? Do you know? While I
So,
think about
so,
that.
so actually in the saddle will average about 10 and a half hours a day,
Okay, so
average. So
less
some
time than I
days,
did my one day
yeah.
for
So
35 days.
yeah, with stops, it'll be 12 or 13 hours average. So some days it'll be 15 or 16, and some will be 8 or 9, but average 10 and a half in the saddle.
Absolutely phenomenal, and it's an extreme thing to be trying to do in terms of just a physical challenge, plus all the training and getting over surgery. it's an extreme thing to be trying to do in terms of fundraising. And trust me, I know that. I've been there, been doing that for a while. I have an association with Coco going back many years. I know how hard that is. Last time, I think you raised about 15,000+. And that was the biggest individual single effort donation that they'd received. So this one, I think, was probably already on track to beating that. But 60,000, just the pure kind of kahunas and trying to do that from a fundraising point of view is absolutely massive. But there are very few people who could rally the kinds of support that you've managed to rally, and got a bunch of us doing all the things that we are doing to help you in that fundraising challenge. And this is my contribution. So hats off to you, mate. I think the fact that you have come through surgery and you're, by the sounds of it, fit enough to go, but you're going to be with the finishing touches on it, that in itself is something. So so well done already. And oh my God, this is going to be an extraordinary thing to follow and to track you on and to talk to you about as you go. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Before I even go, Jim, the amount collected the last time has already been surpassed. It's 15,500 already, which is absolutely brilliant. And if everybody who has promised to do stuff for me does it, there's 29 grand pretty much committed. So I'm feeling very happy that even if no more is raised during the ride, I should end up with 29 or 30 grand for the charity, which would be brilliant. So anyway, we'll see where it ends up.
And then obviously Pedal Power supporting you with that. So that's their contribution to this podcast, which is money going straight to the cause. And there'll be people who see this podcast. Hopefully a bunch of us will share it. Other people will share it. The more you spread this around, please, the better. And right there on the screen is the it's not a link, unfortunately, but it's a website, coco.org.uk/Daithi 646060460. Please just jump on and bang in whatever you feel makes sense for you, considering just how crazy and mad this whole thing is. Daithi, thank you so much for coming on. Really good to have this first episode. This is going to be a mini Eejitonabike series. Hopefully the next one will be before you start. We might maybe do one with you when you're in Norway and just getting ready to get going, and then we'll catch up with you as you go, and including at the finish, and then afterwards. Fingers crossed, all going well. Wind behind you, everything kind of coming together. We'll have another proper series. By the way, you're doing this with anyone that you know?
There is a possibility I'll end up doing it with somebody who rode the North Cape 4000.
Yeah. What do you mean a possibility?
Well, Michael.
Yes.
So,
hang on. By the time people see this, it's 2 weeks to you flying, 3 weeks till you starting. He's in, isn't he? I mean, it's not. He's
in.
You can't be half deciding now. You're either in or you're not by this stage.
Yes. Yeah. So technically, Jim, this is a race, and there are rules, right? And you're meant to do this completely alone, right? You're not meant to do it with anybody else. But I don't care, right? This is a means.
Don't get disqualified in the first 3 days. That's going to spoil the whole thing.
Well, if I get disqualified, I'll still have the tracker, and everybody will still be able to follow me. I'll be going all the way. I might have a chat with Andy and tell him, because you can enter as a pair, but I didn't want to enter as a pair, and Michael didn't want to enter as a pair, because if anything happens to either of us, the pair are both disqualified.
Right.
So we may or may not cycle the whole lot together, but we will certainly start together.
And just to explain very briefly what this is about, Michael is your German friend. You met him after either at the start or just after the start, first day in the last race, and last event, and you end up going pretty much the whole way with him. There was a big group of you, narrowed it down to 2 eventually, and you went through thick and thin together and became really kind of solidly good friends. And somehow I think you managed to talk him into this one to go again.
So it was like somebody was foreseeing the future, because when I met Michael, he asked me to hold his bike while he went for a pee.
At the start.
It was really a prophecy about us ending up sleeping in public toilets. heated
Yeah,
public
well,
toilet.
that's a sentence we don't want to have clipped out of here and left on its own. We'll make sure that doesn't get edited out and put out as a clip. No, that's tempting, I tell you. Okay. Okay, David, on that note, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I'm delighted to be contributing in a fun way to helping you with this. And thanks again to Pedal Power for the support. And I know you're getting your bike kind of looked over by them. You already talked about that. So great guys down there. And talk to you again soon. Before you start, to see how your anxiety and nerves and everything else is coming together in that final stages before you get going.
No problem, Jim. Thank you very much for doing this, and thanks to Pedal Power too for supporting it. That's brilliant. Have a good evening.
Talk to you soon, David. Cheers, bye.
God bless.